Alright, what's going on, guys? Now, before I get started with the discussion of today's video, I'm actually going to bring the camera in and let you guys get a better look at the diagram that's going to be the focus of today's conversation. If you want, just go ahead and screenshot this so you can get a better view while I talk about it. I'm trying to find a good way to have the whiteboard in the frame and me at the same time while also having descriptions on the whiteboard, and I don't know, maybe I just am being a little pessimistic about it, but I think it's kind of hard to read that from the angle that I give you. So I just wanted to give you a moment to screenshot it. Just rewind the video and go back to that point. Screenshot it real quick if this setup right here doesn't work for you, but I'm going to try to keep myself in frame too. There. Well, I think that's pretty good. All right, technical issues out of the way. I'm going to start reading my script for the video, which is on my laptop because I did not get the chance to print it. What's going on, fellas? Today's video is going to be about a diagram I found to be useful for explaining the relationship between volume, intensity, and frequency. And it's something we're going to be talking about for the next few videos. Now, in the last video, we defined these training variables as well as talked about some general guidelines to follow so that you have a better idea of what a good training plan looks like. Today we're going to be looking at this diagram as a means of better understanding the synergy between intensity, frequency, and volume. I'll go ahead and remind you that the context of the discussion we're having today is around hypertrophy training, and because of that, the kind of intensity we are talking about on this triangle is load, which can be thought of as rep ranges. Effort is a non-negotiable variable for the majority of lifters, so we're not going to talk about that today. Just train hard. In addition to this, volume in this context is in regards to sets, while frequency could be referred to as the frequency at which we are hitting a muscle or the amount of sessions we are showing up for within a week. Now, this triangle, which I made a Triforce because I thought that would be dope, represents as a whole is the balance between these three variables that results in a sustainable training plan. While being inside the triangle represents a sustainable training plan, falling outside of that triangle means we picked a combination of intensity, volume, and frequency that exceeds our recovery capabilities, and we stop being able to progress in our training and maybe even accumulate overuse injuries. So, we're just looking for the right amount of work to dose our stimulus from training so that the dose doesn't exceed our recovery. In practice, what this means for us is that we can't have a training plan with high intensity, high volume, and high frequency. It puts us outside of this holy triangle. Instead, we need to determine what our goals are and which combination of these variables will lend themselves well to our goals. I say this because there are actually some tertiary benefits to be found when you emphasize two of these and pull away from the other. And arranging your training in a way that capitalizes on these tertiary benefits will set you up for more consistent gains down the road. Alright. We established in the last video that the driver of growth is mechanical tension on the muscle, which we can best increase how much of that we expose ourselves to by leaning into more volume in our training. But if we were to skew these variables with an emphasis on volume and frequency by pulling back on the intensity, there's actually a tertiary benefit to be derived there. By doing a lot of volume and doing it frequently throughout the week, we can start to build what is called work capacity, which is just a way of saying that we're capable of handling high amounts of work and recovering from it. This is actually something that a lot of strength training programs focus on in the start, because having a high work capacity sets you up nicely for heavy-duty training further down in your training plan. Now, after that, this brings me to the next tertiary benefit we can derive from training by focusing on volume and intensity at the expense of frequency. Allocating a lot of volume to higher intensities, aka lower rep ranges, is obviously going to grant us great size and strength gains while costing us a bit more recovery from that heavy-duty training, which is why frequency has to be knocked down some. The tertiary benefit we derive from this style of training where we have high volume, heavy duty sessions is the ability to grind through incredibly difficult reps. It's a bit of a simplification, but I like to consider this quality as something that falls under the skill tree of mind-muscle connection. By having these heavy duty and high volume sessions and routinely progressing them, we're going to have the ability to grind out reps that are really challenging and require a skilled level of muscular control. Having this skill is useful for ensuring that we as a lifter have the ability to grind through the reps that are really going to count in our training. Now, finally, I want to talk about the tertiary benefit that comes as a product of focusing a lot on frequency and intensity in your training, which is technical proficiency. By working with weights that are close to our max and doing so frequency, we're improving our ability to maintain good form on that lift, which is essentially skill work, but often gets referred to in the lifting community as neurological proficiency. Much like how learning to grind through hard reps is a skill in its own, so is learning how to be really proficient at those reps as well, in terms of being proficient at squats, hinges, presses, pulls, you name it. The skills learned from becoming very proficient at one variation of any of these movements carries over to other variations, and perhaps can teach you how to get the most out of isolation movements as well. You may think that technical proficiency and the ability to grind reps sounds a lot like the same thing because they both involve your ability to move heavy weights. So let me describe the difference between those two with a comparison. There are people who have the crispest, most technically proficient squats out there, yet also have to bail the squat the second they misgroove that rep. There are also people who have no cadence, tempo, control, or technical proficiency to the squat, just dive bomb the hell out of it and resort to grinding the whole way up. Person A could benefit from learning the ability to grind those reps out once they start to misgroove, while person B could benefit from simply becoming a better squatter. Both lifters are getting less out of the movement than they could. Now, aside from having training that's biased towards each of these wholly tertiary variables and the act of reaching them, it is also entirely valid to have a balanced blend of these three variables with no plans on grasping one of these tertiary variables at the moment. Many people in reality just need a lifting plan that takes place anywhere in the triangle and to stay consistent with that. It's only as time goes on that you really need to understand the synergy between these variables so you can realize where in this triangle your best gains will be made. All of this has been to say that there is no perfect training plan. There are just good training plans that make sense given where you're at in your lifting journey, and bad training plans that will take in consideration what you can do to become a better lifter. An intelligent training plan takes a look at where you're at now and is built to make you more holistic with less weaknesses in the lifting room. So that's it for the script in this video. Ended up being a bit of a shorter one. I've been a little too ambitious with what I've been trying to cover in each of these videos, and I actually cut out half of the talking points of this one because I realized, or at least it seemed to me, it would be better to keep the concepts more narrowed in on each of these videos and spend a little bit more time articulating and fleshing out the ideas within that video. So for the next video, I haven't written it up yet or anything, but I just thought about it earlier. I'm going to talk about where a lifter would benefit the most in terms of arranging their training within this triangle. And after that, I'm going to talk about what the process looks like from becoming a beginner lifter to an intermediate and how that reflects in the changes that need to take place within your training plan. But that's all for today's video, guys. Give me any pointers if you think that I sound stupid, if you think that my hair looks bad. If you want me to talk about something, if you want me to elaborate on something I said in this video, please let me know in the comments below. Till then, y'all have a good one.